Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. Today I want to do another episode of Boat Talk. Seems like the Boat Talk segments are pretty well received. The last video got a lot of views, got some great comments, and one of the viewers said, what is my favorite way to rig a Yamamoto Hula Grub? And the Hula Grub, for those that aren't familiar with this bait, it was probably one of the initial baits that Yamamoto launched way back when it was a brand new company. It's a staple and a must-have on the West Coast. And in different pockets around the country, there's some places where it really gets fished a ton. Spotted bass, smallmouth, largemouth, bodies of water where you have all three really can be good. The Midwest, like Table Rock and those lakes in that area, Lake of the Ozarks, those types of places. But all of your highland impoundments, your clear water type fisheries, the Hula Grub is a great one. It's a 12 months of the year bait. Catches them, again, all types of species, all across the country, 12 months of the year. It's a great one if you're not familiar with it. Make sure you get a pack of Yamamoto Hula Grubs and give them a try. But the question was, what's my favorite way to fish it? The way that I like to fish it is with a football head or a football jig, a skirted football jig. This one's a Buckeye Lures football jig, but when I initially started fishing the Hula Grub, I was fishing it on a football head, and it didn't even have a weed guard. It's something that a lot of guys fished on the West Coast because a lot of the places we fished was just rock and gravel and sand, and so you really didn't even need a weed guard. But if you're fishing anywhere else, most of the lakes we go to all around the country have brush in it, so you probably want a brush guard of sorts. But that bait I really feel like was designed to be fished on the back of a football jig, just like that. The skirt there adds a lot of a visual appeal, catches a lot of water, draws fish to it, moves water. It's probably the best way, my favorite way to fish it. But again, you can fish it on a skirted football jig, and a lot of guys would say, well, do you even want that? A lot of times you thread it onto a skirted football jig, and it adds more bulk to the skirt. A lot of times gives it a slower fall. And another thing that it does is it just gives a difference of color from the skirt that you have there to the hula portion on there. And that's probably my favorite way to fish it. I've heard from some guys that they really like to fish it on a Carolina rig. I've done it before. I bet it catches a bunch of fish in certain sections of the country, but that Hula Grub is it's just super versatile. I have fished the Hula Grub, well, not the Hula Grub, but the double tail grub, which is also from Yamamoto. And essentially, if you were going to buy some Hula Grubs, you could actually just pull that skirted portion off and you'd have a Hula Grub. So if you didn't want something with as much bulk, you could just have yourself a twin tail trailer like that Hula Grub right there without the hula portion, and you could thread it on a swim jig. And I've caught them on a swim jig, the Yamamoto double tail grub on a swim jig. So that's a great way to fish it. I bet if you wanted to, you could fish it on a bladed jig. I know it would catch fish. In that past video that I just did, I was rigging it on a Buckeye Lures balling out jig. I think it's really ideal for that scenario. With that bait, I would probably pull off the hula section. But like I said, Yamamoto offers a double tail grub that is basically the same thing without the hula. So another way that you could fish it is on a jig rig. And a jig rig is similar, try to move that material out of the way. It's similar to, say, a Tokyo rig. Owner used to have this. This is the jig rig. I don't think they carry it anymore, but it's basically kind of a teardrop shaped weight that's fixed onto the hook. I'll go ahead and remove it just so you can see it. And you could really fish this bait or any type of soft bait on this setup. As you can see, there's a sealed ring there with a split ring, and then the weights down there. So you really could fish a lot of different baits on that setup, but you just throw it out and reel it along the bottom, kind of like you would a swing head, which brings me to another thing that you could fish this on a hard head or swing head type presentation, where it has the football and it pivots, also known as a pivot head, and you could swing. So I don't have one here in front of me right now, but you could fish it on a pivot head. Another way that guys fish it is they flip it. They just use it as a flipping bait, you know, Texas rig. You're gonna have to find the right hook to kind of fit that body section. And the hook that I found that probably fits it is that Owner J hook, and it's got that cutting point. Really like that, and I like the extra wide gap on it so that you have less of a tendency for the plastic to ball up on the hook, potentially miss a fish. Those are some of the more popular methods to fish it, but I would have to say that on a football head or a football jig would be the best way to fish that hula grub. That hula grub comes in a bunch of different colors. That's a baby bass, really super popular color, green pumpkin, copper and purple, and then, yep, even a like a pearl with silver flake for when you're when fish are feeding on bait fish. So there's a lot of different ways to fish the hula grub. It's a tried and true way to catch them. I think it's something that not a lot of people are thinking about anymore, and you can probably catch some fish behind people throwing that bait that has been really a time-tested, proven producers, won several tournaments over the years. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Takahiro Omori won his first Bassmaster tournament on a double-tail hula grub, Yamamoto double-tail hula grub. Of a fun fact for you, I know that Gary Yamamoto himself won the U.S. Open on Lake Mead on a double-tail hula grub. So obviously time-tested producer and a great bait that's super versatile. If you haven't fished the hula grub, give it a chance. I'm sure you'll find that you need to have a few bags of those in your boat at all times or in your tackle bag, wherever you may be fishing. But that's all for now, guys. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel, and until next time, good fishing.